Is it now more difficult for you to make a decision? Do you find yourself second guessing your decisions and your choices? Or is it difficult to remember why you selected the option you chose? If any of these challenges are applicable to you, keep watching. I have an amazing tool that I will walk us through with a sample problem and also discuss other functional applications I've used it for. It's called the Decision Making Grid. Let's have a look. Okay, here's our handy dandy making a difficult decision worksheet. Here's my source, reprinted from Recap, ETR Associates Resource Center for Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention. I use this tool with my clients who have cognitive communication challenges, either from a brain injury, but did you know that people can have cognitive communication challenges even in the absence of a brain injury? Mental health diagnoses can also result in cognitive communication challenges. That makes sense because when we're stuck in our emotional brain, it's difficult to access our higher level thinking, reasoning, problem solving processes that are involved in interpersonal interaction. Here's a sample problem that we will work through. In the grand scheme of things, this one is a relatively simple problem to work through, but I've also used this tool primarily for really big, important decisions. For example, one of my clients was the power of attorney for their parents, specifically regarding their medical decisions. My client had to make a choice of whether or not to put their parent in a care home. So my client and I worked through this sheet together. I wasn't telling them what to do. Rather, I was helping them brainstorm options, consider the task from different perspectives, including what are the short-term and long-term consequences, both positive and negative. So I was helping scaffold her thinking, but she was the one coming up with the ideas, or I suggested more alternatives for her to consider. So I was scaffolding my clients' learning, but they were the ones coming up with the ideas, doing the thinking, making the decision. I was simply there to assist with the thinking process and helping them see the issue from multiple perspectives, which ties into that cognitive flexibility and divergent thinking. Let's jump into it. First, you're going to come up with the problem statement. This seems rather self-explanatory. However, I find that it is an important first step. Lots of people don't actually take the time to do. Being able to consolidate your thoughts about a problem into a summary statement, a simple, what is the problem, define it statement, that has value to help you focus in on what is your goal and could help you stay on target and avoid tangential thoughts. Once you have isolated what the problem actually is, you then generate at least 4 options. In this case, option 1, you can change the tire yourself. Option 2, call a friend to change the tire. Option 3, drive to a mechanic. Or option 4, call a tow truck. Now it's time to brainstorm the positive and negative consequences of each option, both short-term and long-term. Diving into option number 1, which was change the tire yourself. The positive consequences, short-term and long-term, that we brainstormed was my client had done it before. It would be cheaper. You don't have to pay a mechanic to do it. Negative short-term and long-term consequences included that she may have to change more than one tire by herself. She might make a mistake because she's not trained and it could be dangerous. Option number 2 was call a friend to change the tire. Positive short-term and long-term consequences include she may be able to drive temporarily, and this would be free. However, negative consequences include her friend might not be a trained professional. They might not have all the right tools, and again, it could be dangerous. Option number 3, drive to a mechanic. On the positive side, they could change all the tires so the tires are all matching. The job would be professionally done, so you could be confident in the safety of the vehicle. On the downside, this is the more expensive option, and it could be time consuming if they have to try to match your current tires and they don't have them in stock. And continuing to drive on a flat tire is probably not the safest option. Finally, for option number 4, call a tow truck. The positive consequences include this option would enable the car to be safely taken to a mechanic to be fixed. And again, you're leaving it to the professionals. Negative consequences include it will probably be expensive and there may be longer wait times. The next section I really love because I think it's something that we may think of unconsciously that impacts the decision we make, but I really love the fact that this template makes you explicitly think about what are your values related to this decision. We reviewed some sample values in my other video called Mentor Imaging or Metaphoric Identity Mapping, where I shared some categories of values by Marcia Linehan, who is the creator of Dialectical Behavior Therapy Manual. So you could either check out that video for examples of categories of values, or you could do your own research. I'm sure Google would spit out a list of values, or even ChatGPT could help you find out what your values are. But for example, say you value frugality, but also safety, or say you're a perfectionist and you want the job to be done right. Those are some simple examples of how your personal values may impact what alternative you pick for you. I also love that this template cues you to consider who else is affected by this decision. So it's got a checklist here of who possible people are that could be affected. In this example, she came up with if the car is towed and she doesn't have any money, or if the repairs cost too much money for her, she wouldn't be able to drive that car anymore. She would then need to wait to get some money. She could ask her friends or parents for a loan or ask them for rides while she's waiting for her car to be fixed. Based on all the information above, my client decided it would be most appropriate for her to try to fix the tire by herself. In the example of my client who was power of attorney for their parents' medical decisions, we used this worksheet together. So the problem was my client's parents' health was failing, but my client didn't necessarily feel they had the resources to be able to care for their parent at home. I don't remember each of the alternatives we brainstormed, but an example could be, could another relative take on the caregiving demands associated with taking care of my client's parent? For example, one of their siblings. Alternative two, would a long-term care home be better? Alternative three may have been home instead, where you hire a service to come in and provide care in the client's own home. And alternative four, perhaps the parent continues to live with my client. So then we brainstormed the positive short-term and long-term consequences and the negative ones for each of those four options. We then considered what were my client's personal values related to this decision. And I believe, if I recall correctly, they valued their parents' comfort. And growing up, they had recalled that their parent had been strongly against long-term care homes or nursing homes in the future. So this weighed heavily on my client's decision, knowing that it was against their parents' wishes. So an example, perhaps my client valued loyalty, and by sending their parent to a long-term care home, that would make them feel disloyal. On the other hand, if my client valued their well-being, you can't pour from an empty cup, perhaps that value took priority to help inform the decision they made. Other people affected by this decision was my client's other siblings, certainly my client's parent, my client's spouse, and of course my client. So we went into all the details there. By the end of the session, my client had not settled on which alternative was best for their family. But based on the work that we did together during our session by filling in this template, my client felt more confident to have a structured, productive conversation with their siblings to solve this problem and to feel confident about the decision they made and why. So that's it for today. There's your making a difficult decision grid. I hope it works out really well for you. If you have any interesting scenarios or decisions to which you have applied this tool, I'd love to hear about it. Take good care and thanks for watching.